Alright, so I would go through this instruction so to help you prepare for the test, access test next week. In the Google share that I shared with you from the beginning of the semester, under Microsoft Access Workshops, you would find the test exercise instruction Hammerwise and test exercise test database Hammerwise. So download these two files to your computer, and if you open the test instruction, then you would see that they're on the task I asked you to practice. Yeah, and this task should be done on the sample database that I shared with you. So the task number one, we will practice how to change the table design to satisfy the requirement. So for example, I would open the service tables in the database. So if you look on the left hand side here, then we got the service table. So this is the data views of the service table. Now if I go to the design view, you would see here that in each of these fields, right, they would have text description in the description area. So let's look at the service field, and this one should be primary key. Now if you look at here, the service is not yet a primary key, because if it's a primary key, it will have the key next to it, right? So you read the instruction here and you make sure you change the property for this field to satisfy that it is a primary key. Okay, we look at the S date, or this equal the service date of the tabs, and the date format should be date, month, and year in this format. Okay, so for this requirement, the service date need to be changed to date and time, because this is the date, and the format is like this. To change the format, you need to look at the input mask. So the input mask under the field property and input mask. So I would then yes, if asked you to save, then you save it. Alright, so you can see here this is the input mask for date, and say we want to choose the long short date, so it's date, month, and year. You want to test it look like, yeah, and if we are okay, we says we finish. So now we would see that the date have been changed and input mask has been changed as well. Okay, now if you look at the TA access number, and this field is set that do not change. Yeah, if it do not change, then do not modify this field, just accept as it is. Okay, we look at the T serial number. This is a 3-digit number, start with SDQ, do not change, so you don't touch on it. But then the next one said maximum 5 character. So we need to change the field size for this field to maximum 4 character. So we will change the field size here to 4. Okay, so this will satisfy this condition. And if you look at the unit time, and it said that this is the number of half-hour blocks, so this field should be a number. So if you look at the data type, you need to change this one to number. Alright, so once you finish on this one, and then you can close and save. Alright, when you save, then you have changed according to the table design instruction. Alright, we move on, we look at the next instruction. So that's task A, change the table design. Then the next one, you would need to be set up the connection between two tables. So for example, you can connect service to tab or customer to venue. Right, and also you need to enforce referential integrity between the two tables. So if you look at here, I have a little table and I need to connect the table together in the relationship. I would go to database tools, relationship. Okay, now you would see that we have customer and venues, tab and service. Okay, now in the test you may see something like this, that the two tables have no relationship, customer and venue tab and service. So then for this task you need to connect the two tables by linking the primary key and the foreign keys correctly. Make sure that you choose the correct field between the two tables to connect. You should not just randomly connect any field between the two tables. It must match the right foreign key in another table. So make sure you also tick on enforce referential integrities, and then you connect. Now if you see this connection with a proper one-to-many size between the two tables, you have finished the requirement. Similarly, right, to connect service to tab, then you also need to connect the right field, service ID, so tag and TA asset number, TA asset number. Alright, so practice and link these two to a table together. So that is the relationship. Now creating form with subform. So in this task we will need to create a form with subforms, for example to display customer and venue, or tab information and so associated services. Alright. Also in the form you also need to add buttons, and depends on the requirement you may add different buttons to do different things. Also you need to change the form title as required. So let's look at here, and I would close this. Right, so create, and then I would use form wizard, and let's create the customer and venue. Okay, now I'm not choosing all of the field, I just select a few fields between the two tables to make the form look cleaner. Customer and venues, and this is form with subform, and we finish. Alright, so this is a very basic form that Access create you using the form wizards. And on this form you can also go to the design view and also change the layout of the form to make it better. And also you need to add buttons. Alright, so here in the design section you would add buttons to create a new records, add new records. You also can create a field or buttons that delete records, so operation delete records. Alright, if you go to the form view you will see now I have buttons that allow you to add and delete records. Yeah. If you want to change the field name of form header and footer, also you can go to design views and you can add label. This is label to add more information in the form, right? So this is label. Right, once you create the form, you also need to use the form to add records into the database. For example, you want to add new customer and venue forms into the database, or you can add new tab and services form. Right, so if I look back here in the form, I can add new records. Okay, when you add a new customer or venue, make sure that you do not try to enter or modify the ID, because this field is an auto number, so it does not allow you to add by yourself, but Microsoft Access will add the ID for you, and all you need to do is to enter new customer information in the form. Okay, and as you can see, the ID will be added by Microsoft Access automatically. And the same that you would add the venue information here, venue information as provided in the instruction. Okay, so that's the creating form. Yeah, this. Alright, and another task from this task is mainly to do with query and report. So in here you will be asked to create a range of query, depends on the context and the case study. For example, you create a query that lists owner, customer, and venue, and sort it by venue, right? So create, and then under create, I will look at query design, and I said, okay, they want to add customer and venue, right? So this, I would select the field I want to go into the query. Yeah, this is the field I want to go to query. This is the venue names. Okay, so I select the customer name, postcode, state, and venue name. I run the query. Here you are. This is new query. Now, in terms of query, they will also, you need to learn how to create conditional query, dynamic query, and calculated query. Okay, for example, for conditional query means I go to design views, and I can ask whether list the customer in New South Wales. So I would put New South Wales in the state, right? And then if you run, it will show all the customer in New South Wales only. Alright. Now, we also need to create what we call dynamic query, which means you let the user to enter the query, enter the condition for the query, and it will be reused every time. Right? So for example, if you want to list a customer in a particular postcode, and that the user can enter the postcode when it runs. So I'm look at here, back to this query, and we ask the user to enter a postcode. So I would put here, enter a postcode. Right. The key note here is that you need to use the square bracket. Yeah, I remind you what it means. Square bracket next to the letter P on your keyboard, right? This is equal square brackets. Let me make it zoom in big so you can see. This is what we call square bracket, and anything in between is just instruction, right? It's just instruction to let the user know what to enter in that input box. Alright, that runs. It will say enter postcode. I will enter postcode. If you can't find it, then it will show no matching information. Alright, this is called dynamic query. Right? Dynamic can be a particular field, or it can also be a range, okay, between. Okay. Calculated query. So in this query, you would have some calculation when you create the query. For example, list the number of venues for each customer. Okay, so we have the venue here. We got a customer. Let me remove this postcode. So to have the calculation query, pay attention to this total functions up on the menu. So total, when you click on total, then you would see down here the total row will be added, and you want to know the number or count of the venue name. Yeah, count of the venue names. We want to know how many venue each customer has. So I would let group by customer, and count venue, and I would run. So here you see that we got 8 customers, and these are the number of venue that each customer has. Okay, so here remember the total functions and the function in the total row we count. That's the calculated query. Now, then task 15, prepare a report based on the query. So after you have generated the query or reports, or tables, you can generate reports based on this information. So for example, let's create a report to show customer and venues report. So let me save this one. I will save this. Click on query number of venue. Okay. Let's you see that number of venue. So let's create a report to show, okay, to list the customer or to show number of venues each customer has. So create, and then you go to report, and we'll use report wizard. So you can create a report based on tables. Okay, so you select table and then you select field in that table, or you can select report based on query. Okay, I only have some queries created for you in that provided sample database. Okay, so you can select venue queries and then select on the fields. Okay, for example, in this one, let's create a report that shows customer and venues. And I already built a query named customer and venues. And then I select all of the fields in that query, like customer name, state, venue name, and venue support. Then go next. Then here I would have the customer name and state. Okay. Then it asks you, do you want to add any grouping level? Okay, for example, we want to add a grouping by state. Okay, I add a grouping by state. So what it does is it will group all the customer belong to the same state in the same section. Right? It makes the report look clearer. If you want to sort, you can sort by whatever field you want. Let's sort by customer name. And then in the layout, there are three options: step, block, outline. I will just accept default settings with these steps. Next, and finish. Alright, so you can see this is the report. This is the list of the venues, and it's the short group by state, and then in each state you got a customer and the venues. So customer and venues. Right now, the report also have a design view. So you click on the design view, and you can also add additional information into report using label. Label. Alright, so let's go to report view. You can see that I just added a new text in here, and this is the customer, group into states, and then the number of venue that we have. Alright, so this is generate report. So you can build report based on query or on tables. And finally, you can change the report title, header, footer. Okay, and you can add student ID into report footer as well. So let's look at here. This is the table, and you can add student ID, name in report footer. Alright, so I just modified the report and provide information as requested. Alright, so that's the end of the overview for the Microsoft Access test preparation. I wish you all the best so that we all can do well the test next week. Any question, feel free to email me. Okay.